doesn't care. All right, Northwestern University, the quarterback of the football team, Kane Coulter, and the United States Steelworkers Union get together. They announced yesterday these plans to form the first labor union for college athletes.
The NCAA, none too pleased, saying student athletes are not employees. They do not have the right to organize. What does Judge Andrew Napolitano have to say about this? Fox News senior judicial analyst joining us with more. They're right.
Oh, I like the way you point.
That's
even though you predicted I'd be angry over this.
Who's right?
Angry, fired up. Just
the NCAA.
It's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, traditionally, student athletes have not been employees, even though their behavior generates enormous amounts of money for the schools for which they play. So that's point number one. Point number two is, under the First Amendment, you have the right to associate with whomever you want and to organize however you want. So the question is, will the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, which would look at this in the first instance, conclude that student athletes are employees of the universities which they attend? My guess is they will not. But if they did, then these kids would be onto something. Of course, it would revolutionize college
really
sports. Absolutely revolutionize.
Then we'd be talking. This, by the way, is not necessarily about getting paid, but they mentioned protection from injuries and coverage like that, all those kind of things. But if they did identify them as employees, then why won't they?
Income would be extraordinary.
Right. Why won't they?
Well, I don't know which way it will go. I will tell you this: the laws are very liberal, and they are written to be interpreted liberally in favor of the employee or potential employee, not employer.
And the NLRB is much more liberal than it was with
precisely,
the
Dagan. The NLRB traditionally manifests the values of the president. So this NLRB, which has two interim appointments there that may be invalidated by the Supreme Court, nevertheless is filled with liberal Democrats who were labor lawyers for labor unions.
All right, so they might approve
before they get on there.
But it sounds like you don't think they should.
No, I don't think they should, because I don't think the culture is ready for it, and I don't think this is the typical traditional employee-employer relationship. When I was in college,
here we go.
Oh boy,
it was back when television was black and white.
When I was in college,
it was considered an honor that you could play in a varsity sport and perhaps put some money to the bottom line of the university. The last thing in the world you would think of is that you were personally entitled to any of that cash.
But
that was a long time ago.
So different. But like,
I didn't say anything. I have when I was in college. I have a counterpoint to that in a second. Take it. Go ahead.
Well, the union movement. The labor union movement is rooted in, it's about compensation, but it is about safety. So
listen, that's where I think this is their weakest argument.
Okay.
Because they already have tremendous protection and a cause of action which would be extremely sympathetic to them. A college student injured because of inadequate protection in, let's say, football, would cost that college an extraordinary amount of money.
So even though it's not quote-unquote guaranteed, it's still there.
Yes.
Or
the right to protection is there. Again, this is not OSHA protecting them. No. This is the laws of, in this case, the state of Illinois protecting them.
No, it's not really a story. It's just like the judge was saying when I was in college. When I was in college, what I thought of related to this is that when I was in college, I was paid by, as a work study, by the college radio station to cover sports, and then the athletes are paid. And that, if you think about it, seeps kind of weird, doesn't it?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So that would work in their favor.
Yes, that would work in their favor.
So why?
They're going to call you as a witness.
No answer to this. They should be paid then. They're making money in the video games, the jerseys, everything.
I love
about that very thing, about compensating these former players.
I love college sports. I'm going to tell you about a private conversation. I don't think he minds if I reveal it. John Calipari, the great basketball coach, is a friend and a former client of mine.
Okay.
And I asked him, are you happier now with college, or were you happier when you were coaching the New Jersey Nets? Infinitely happier now coaching a college team, in large measure because you don't have these overpaid players. It's not about money. It's just about winning and the development of the sport and the development of the team.
But
you start paying those kids, and it's a radical difference.
He gets a new team every year, too.
Yes, he does.
You think it's fair that these colleges bring in this amount of money and they use their likenesses and they sell memorabilia?
It would be unfair if the athletes were playing against their will. but they choose to do this. This is voluntary. This is a potential career maker if they do this well. So, of course, it's fair because it's a voluntary agreement between two parties.
Good stuff.
The college and the student athletes.
Didn't I tell you it was going to be interesting? I have gone back and forth. Well, I thought my little analogy that I made. So after I made my little analogy, I think I'm going more on the side than I used to be of the players. Because, I mean, I could understand. Maybe.
Something.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a free market.
Well, I'll suggest to you this. This is not a story that's going to be over today. We'll be covering this. And whichever way it goes, somebody's going to appeal. I mean, this
100%.
This can't end in the first instance.
Right, because like I said, this one's not even about necessarily the salaries, but it brings up that conversation. So
something tells me money's going to get involved.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And it's a transparent power grab by the labor movement. So there you go.
All right. On that, we agree.
On that, we wind it up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so